Hello students, in this video we will be discussing our fourth section, the making of Germany and Italy. It is a very important part of the chapter. Here we will study the unification of Germany and Italy. First, let us look at the subsection 4.1, Germany. Can the army be the architect of a nation? Earlier we have seen it was always the common people who led the revolution of nationalism, and in the Frankfurt Parliament in the Church of St. Paul, newly drafted constitution was presented to the King of Prussia. The king was Friedrich Wilhelm IV. When was this session conducted? It was in 1848. During that time, the conservatives were able to suppress the liberals. After that, after 1848, the conservatives slowly began to highlight nationalist sentiment. Do you remember that before they used to oppose this act, but now they are working on it? But they did this because they had some motive behind this. They wanted to promote state power and achieve political domination over Europe. By doing so, by mobilizing nationalist sentiment, they would get the support from the people. This can be observed in the process by which Germany and Italy came to be unified as nation-states. It was the middle-class Germans in 1848 who tried to unite the different regions of the German Confederation into a nation-state that was to be governed by an elected parliament. This idea of nation building was first initiated by the middle-class liberals, which was later repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and the military, who were supported by the large landowners of Prussia. These large landowners were also called as Junkers. So from then on, Prussia took on the leadership of the movement for national unification. Note the point here that Prussia was a German state where German-speaking people lived. There was no Germany as a country back then. So in this section, we are discussing how German-speaking people had a state as German Empire. So, when the conservatives were dealing with nationalist sentiments, the responsibility for national unification was given in the hands of the Chief Minister of Prussia, Otto von Bismarck. He was the architect of the process that carried out with the help of the Prussian army and bureaucracy. As German-speaking region was spreading, war broke out with the neighboring region. Total of 3 wars took place in a span of 7 years with Austria, Denmark, and France. They won the war, which further completed the process of unification. After the victory for the newly unified nation in January 1871, Kaiser William I, the Prussian king, was proclaimed as German emperor in a ceremony held at Versailles. So on 18 January 1871, an assembly was held to proclaim the new German empire. Who was he? I just mentioned him. He was Kaiser William I of Prussia. Here, Kaiser William I. As you can see in the figure, it is from the time of proclamation. Those people who attended the declaration were the princes of the German states, representatives of the army, important Prussian ministers, including the Chief Minister Otto von Bismarck. They gathered in the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles. This newly formed state laid emphasis on modernizing the currency, banking, legal and judicial system in Germany. Also, Prussian measures and practices often became a model for the rest of Germany. So this was unification of Germany. Now let us understand unification of Italy. Just as Germany, Italy too was scattered and had a political fragmentation. It was spread on different regions. This was the map for Italy before unification, that is in the year 1858. During the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states, as you can see here. These are the 7 states. This is Sardinia, and Piedmont is located here. Sardinia Piedmont was ruled by Italian princely house. The northern region, this part, it was under Austrian Habsburg. The center, that is the Papal State, was ruled by the Pope. Pope is the chief pastor of church. Okay, and the southern region, this part, these were under the domination of the Bourbon King of Spain. Okay, Bourbon King of Spain, not France. Like others, Italian language also did not have one common form and had many regional and local variations. So during 1830, Giuseppe Mazzini, he already attempted and contributed in nationalism in Italy and Europe. Do you remember? So he even formed secret societies. It was 2 secret societies. What were they? What were those 2 secret societies? It was Young Italy and Young Europe. But he could not succeed to carry out further. But again, it was because of his effort more people drew towards nationalism, not only in Italy but also in other parts of Europe. So it was also because of the failure of revolutionary uprisings both in 1831 and 1848 that the responsibility now fell on Sardinia Piedmont's ruler, King Victor Emmanuel II, to unify the Italian states through war. Just like German conservatives had motive in unification, even Italian ruler had a reason to take up this act of unification. So in the eyes of the ruling elites of this region, a unified Italy offered them the possibility of economic development and political dominance. In the unification of Italy, there were 2 more important prominent leaders, Chief Minister Cavour and Giuseppe Garibaldi. Don't confuse Garibaldi with Mazzini, okay? They are different persons. So Chief Minister Cavour was an Italian elite. He led the movement to unify the regions of Italy, but he was not a revolutionary nor a democrat. And just like other elite members of Italy, he too spoke French. He also had a good bond with France. So this helped him in the war through a tactful diplomatic alliance with France engineered by Cavour. Sardinia Piedmont succeeded in defeating the Austrian forces in 1859. And Giuseppe Garibaldi, an Italian general, also joined the fight. In 1860, they marched into South Italy and the Kingdom of the 2 Sicilies and succeeded in winning. In 1860, they marched into South Italy, that is here, and the Kingdom of the 2 Sicilies, and succeeded in winning the support of the local peasants in order to drive out the Spanish rulers. And in 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed King of United Italy. So they have won the war. This map was Italy before unification, and this map here is the Italy after unification. Now let us look at the strange case of Britain. The model of the nation or the nation state, some scholars have argued, is Great Britain. Here in Britain, the formation of nation state was not achieved by any revolution or revolt. It was the result of a long drawn out process. Remember this point, okay? Long drawn out process. And it was not the result of a sudden upheaval or revolution. These 2 points. Before 18th century, there was also no British nation. The primary identities of the people who inhabited the British Isles were ethnic ones, such as English, Welsh, Scot, or Irish. Among these ethnic groups, the English nation gradually grew in wealth, importance, and power, and it was extending over the other nations as well. In 1688, the English Parliament had seized the power from the monarchy. Through this, nation-state with England at its center came to be formed in Western Europe. And the Act of Union 1707 between England and Scotland led to the formation of United Kingdom of Great Britain. With this, slowly England was influencing Scotland, and it was resulting into losing the Scottish culture, and its political institution was also suppressed. Scottish Highlanders were even not allowed to speak their own Gaelic language or wear their national dress, and large numbers of their people were also driven out of their homeland forcibly. Ireland also faced the same situation. It was a country that was divided between Catholics and Protestants. Protestants were the other church besides Catholics. The English group helped the Protestants of Ireland to dominate over Catholic country. After this, the Catholics did revolt. They tried to get their power, but they were suppressed. One such revolt was led by Wolfe and his United Irishmen. But they failed, and instead Ireland was forcibly incorporated into the United Kingdom in 1801. With this growth of English culture, the new British nation was forged. And the symbols of the new Britain, the British flag, the national anthem, and the English language were actively promoted, and the older nations survived only as subordinate partners in this union. So we have discussed the rise of nationalism and formation of nation states in Europe. Now we will discuss on the fifth section, visualizing the nation, which means kind of symbols or figures that represent a nation by giving an identity. Now let us look what was that figure. Okay, if you imagine a ruler, they are represented through a portrait or a statue. But how can a nation be presented? Artists in the 18th and 19th centuries found a way out by personifying a nation. They represented a nation by portraying a female figure. This female figure did not stand for any particular woman in real life. It was just an abstract idea in a concrete form. That is, the female figure became an allegory of the nation. Allegory means an abstract idea expressed through a person or a thing. And you will recall that during the French Revolution, artists used the female allegory to portray ideas such as liberty, justice, and the republic. These ideals were represented through specific objects or symbols. As you would remember, the attributes of liberty are the red cap or the broken chain, while justice is generally a blindfolded woman carrying a pair of weighing scales. A form of figure and objects were used to symbolize and signify the portraying ideas. Even today, this woman carrying a pair of weighing scales, this blindfolded woman, it is seen in the court. Artists in 19th century also invented female allegories to represent the nation. In France, the allegory was Christ Marianne, a popular Christian name. Her characteristics were drawn from those of liberty and the republic: the red cap, the tricolor, the cockade. Her images were also marked on coins and stamps. This is the postage stamp of 1850 with Marianne's figure. Similarly, in Germany, also Germania, she became the allegory of the German nation. In this visual representation, Germania wears a crown of oak leaves, as the German oak stands for heroism. Here are some list of meanings of these symbols. Look at it and you will understand the meaning behind the allegory's representation. Now let us look into our last section, nationalism and imperialism. Throughout the chapter, we have been discussing on nationalism. But what is imperialism? Nationalism was on common feelings of unity, but imperialism is a policy by which it dominates over other using its power. So during the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism was turning away from its ideology. The nationalist groups wouldn't tolerate each other and they tried to dominate one or the other. The major European powers took advantage of this situation and imposed its imperialistic aims. The most serious source of nationalist tension in Europe after 1871 was the area called the Balkans. The Balkans was a region of geographical and ethnic variation comprising modern-day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro, whose inhabitants were broadly known as the Slavs. There are also some points that you need to remember that caused tensions in the emerging of the Balkans. The one was ethnic variation that we just discussed, and the second one is disintegration of Ottoman Empire. A large part of Balkans was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. The ideas of romantic nationalism in the Balkans together with disintegration of the Ottoman Empire made this region very explosive. Subjugation. Soon many foreign powers attempted to subjugate these newly independent states. The Balkan people tried to claim independence by using history to prove that they had once been independent. Hence, the rebellious nationalities struggled to win back their long-lost independence. And the other is jealousy. There was also a jealousy among the Balkan states, and each hoped to expand their boundaries at the expense of others. During this period, the ideology of Europe was changed. The liberal feelings were narrowed down with limited ends. Intolerance followed among the groups, and they were ready to fight a war. And there was also struggle of power between Russia, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Britain. The European powers were interested to expand their own imperialism. Trade, colonies, naval, and military powers were some of the major factors which all the European powers were struggling for. They were all very keen on controlling the hold of the other powers and extending their own. Nationalism aligned with imperialism that led Europe to disaster in 1914. Imperialism was destroying many nations. Many countries that were under colonization by European powers in the 19th century began to oppose. Therefore, European ideas of nationalism was not adopted by anyone anymore. People developed their own variety of nationalism. But the idea that societies should be organized into nation states came to be accepted as natural and universal. So this was our first chapter of history, which is now complete. It is a long lesson. Maybe it will take you a moment to understand, but read your book again and again for better understanding. So with this, we will conclude our class. Thank you.